Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Good morning if you're in Asia. Welcome to this Kemp live event on LinkedIn and Facebook. And we are here with our support organization, some really talented and smart people for this Ask Me Anything session. My name is Frank Yue. I'm the Principal Application Experience Architect, and I'm going to be kind of moderating this and helping lead through some of these questions that we have and that you want to present to us during this session. So today we have with us Bill DeCastro. He's part of our support organization. He's based in New York, and he is one of our definitely technical experts and helps me with a lot of things with our customers. Bill, you want to spend a couple minutes and tell me about yourself?
Hey, Frank. Thanks for the introduction. As Frank said, my name is Bill. I've been with Kemp Support for just under 5 years. It'll be 5 years next month. Just excited to be here, excited to answer the questions that you guys have. And thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. And across the pond, as we like to say here in the States, we have Jake. Jake is based out of our Limerick office, and Jake is, again, one of our expert support staff engineers, and he is with us. Jake, tell us a little bit about yourself.
No problem, Frank. Yep, my name is Jake, as Frank said there. I'm very grateful to be here today. I'm based out of Limerick in Ireland. I'm born and bred there. I've been with Kemp for almost 5 years now. I started off with as a co-op engineer on a placement from my university, and I spent about 9 months on my placement with Kemp. And interesting enough, I always say that I learned more in the first 9 months of my placement than I did previously during my university experience or any previous experience to that. So I think that was one of the key factors that got me really hooked on Kemp, and I was so grateful to come back again after my college experience. And I'm here now, which is fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. And we must have really liked you if we decided to keep you on board after that stint, huh? So
yeah,
we are very happy to have you with us. And of course, last but not least, probably one of the more important folks we have here, we have Nick Smiley. Nick is also based in the New York office and one of our Crackerjack support engineers. Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Frank. Well, thanks again. So I've been here about 5 years, just like the other two. Same old, school. Lately, especially with everything going on, I'm home all the time. I have 2 cats. They're a handful. Adopted them, so they're always keeping me busy at home. It's a little side project almost.
Awesome. Yeah, I used to have cats. Now I have a house full of dogs.
I would like to have a dog. But I just can't leave them alone all day.
I'm lucky. I have a little dog door in the back of my house, and it goes to a fenced part of the yard, and they just go in and out as they need to. And it's kind of hands off, and they take care of their things, and I take care of my things, and we're all happy. At least we think we are.
Yeah, there you go.
So for this session, again, we have a lot of great questions that were presented to us, and we're going to go through those. And for those folks that are on live with us, please submit your questions to the comment section on LinkedIn or Facebook, and we're more than happy to look at those and answer them. And if you pose a question, we have this application experience book that one of our folks has written about load balancing and developing and engineering the application experience for your environment with digital transformation. It's a highly recommended book. Even if you don't get a copy from us, definitely go to Amazon and look at it. And it's something that's a great read for anybody that's interested in digital transformation and load balancing technologies. So having said that, let's look at some of these questions. And the first one I have here is, and this is referring to our load balancing products, and we have our LoadMaster product, which is a commercial product, of course, that we sell and support with our support folks here. And we also have a free version, the free load balancer, which you can find at freeloadbalancer.com. And the first question I have here is, where can I deploy a free LoadMaster? So with a free load balancer product, software that I download, where can I deploy it? And I'm going to throw this to you, Jake. Can you give me an answer on where and how I should deploy this the software?
Yeah, of course. Really, you have plentiful of choices to deploy the LoadMaster. If you choose to go with on-prem, if you already have an existing infrastructure, you have the option to go with VMware or Hyper-V, or even Zen or Oracle, or even also KVM if you have that platform installed. Now, you may be thinking you don't have these resources, you don't have this infrastructure installed already. You may not want to invest in that hardware for your on-premise infrastructure. So you also have the option to go with some public cloud infrastructure, such as Microsoft's Azure, and then also Amazon's AWS. So we do have the ability there where you can actually select a free tier, bring your own license version of the free LoadMaster, and you can actually deploy that within the public cloud if that suits your needs and your current situation. And I think they're great options. There's a choice for nearly everyone. And I believe we're currently working on other options going into the future. So the list is ever expanding, and more choice is better for everyone, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And it sounds like from what you're telling me that basically any virtualized environment, all the major hypervisors, all the major public cloud environments and things like that, I can take this free software and I can load it and have it fully functioning in those environments. So that's really cool. Let's take a look at some of these other questions that I have here. And let me get one that's interesting to me, at least. And let's go to you, Bill. And this question is it possible to assign 2 certificates to a virtual service? And when we say this, we're talking about certificates, we're talking about encryption certificates. So when we're talking about SSL, TLS, HTTPS, you need a certificate to manage the encryption keys for the exchange and the encryption of the traffic. So why would I want 2 certificates on a virtual service, and how would I do that, Bill?
So first off, you absolutely can assign more than one certificate to a virtual service. The reason you might want that is if you have more than one host name that allocates in DNS to that virtual service IP. And the way that those certificates are going to be examined is in a top-down approach when assigned to your virtual service. So, of course, you have a list of certificates that are applied to your virtual service, and the LoadMaster will observe the SAN names associated with that certificate on the top, and then assuming no host names match on that certificate, you'll move right on to the next one, and that'll you can apply a number of certificates there, more than 2.
Awesome. And when you refer to SAN name, we're talking about what we call the subject alternative name, right?
Right, absolutely.
Very cool. And then if I was really wanted to, I could even go to the point where, you know what, I want to make sure that everybody goes to my website. I could even do then at the bottom of that list, do a wildcard certificate so that it's going to match on everything no matter what. So best case scenario, I'm going to match one of my specific certificates. And then worst case scenario, they're still going to be able to get to the site because I have this wildcard certificate. That would work, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Wow, that's really cool. So now we can provide encryption levels. It's really cool. It's flexible, and we can have a nice environment to make that happen. Let's take a look and let's move to another question, because when we talk about multiple certificates and these websites and things like that, now we're really thinking about, you know, these multiple websites, multiple environments, you know, and maybe I want to host multiple sites or multiple portions of a site within the same location. So I have this question coming from a user, and they said, can the LoadMaster help in directing traffic to multiple websites using a single public IP? And I guess this could be partially important because, you know, public IPs, we've been saying kind of since the mid 1990s that we're running out of IP addresses, you know, and the sky is falling and they're going to disappear. And we have to do something about it. And it hasn't quite happened, but there is a lack of IPs that cost money. It takes effort and things. So can we direct traffic to multiple websites using a single public IP? And how would that work? Nick, I'm going to throw this to you since you've been kind of quiet over there so far, and I haven't thrown anything to you. Can you help me in understanding how we would do that and what the impact is?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you already said, you know, public IPs, mainly IPv4 addresses are kind of running out, right? So a lot of customers, a lot of companies might only have, you know, a handful of these to really go around. But at the same time, they might have multiple applications that they need to serve up to their clients, to the customers, to whoever they need to go to, right? So the biggest thing the biggest way we do this is we inspect the host name. For example, you know, abc.com, google.com. We can look at that, and then we can apply some content rules to basically direct traffic based on that. Think of it like, you know, like a police officer in the middle of an intersection. They kind of tell you where to go, you know, left, right, straight, when to stop. You know, it's kind of the same concept with that. So basically, we look at the host names and direct traffic based off of that, which I think is one of the better aspects. For example, for the reason you just said before, we're running out of IPs. It's going to happen one day. You know, obviously, it's not happening as fast as people are saying, but it will happen one day.
Very cool. And so this concept is in the industry what we like to call content switching, where we're doing, like you said, being the traffic cop, and we're looking at the content of the request coming in, and based on that content, in this case, the host name, sending it to a specific set of servers or specific instances on that server related to that host name. For example, I could have a single server because I'm cheap. I'm only going to build one server, and I'm only going to pay for one IP address. And I'm going to have a website, frank.kemp.com, and then I'm going to build a service and create bill.kemp.com and nick.kemp.com and jake.kemp.com. And I'm going to put them all on the same web server in separate instances. But now I can have the traffic coming into that website to that one IP address, because all those names, those host names, frank.kemp.com and bill.kemp.com, from a DNS perspective, all point to the exact same IP address, but we are able to tell the difference and send it to the proper websites, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's really cool. So that's really beneficial, it sounds like, for hosting companies, and again, for small organizations, things where they want to host multiple sites or different things where they can do that. That sounds like a really advantageous thing. And all of this is available on our free LoadMaster solution that you can download for free at freeloadmaster.com, correct?
Absolutely, Frank.
Wow, that's great. So anybody that wants that functionality and is interested in that capability, you can download it for free and make it work. Awesome. So let me take a look at another questions here, and let me see here. This is kind of interesting. I'm not sure I would support it from. I'm a security-minded kind of guy, so I like worrying about security and making sure things are good. And encryption protocols have advanced over the years, partially because computing power has gotten a lot more powerful, and encryption protocols that existed 5 or 10 years ago aren't strong enough for us protecting the data today, because the computers can basically break them down for much easier because they're more powerful, right? So here's a question I have here. Can the LoadMaster be used to support legacy application servers using outdated SSL or encryption protocols by forcing the SSL or TLS version on the client side? Let's throw this to you, Jake. Is that possible, and how would you do it, and why would you do it?
I kind of agree with yourself, Frank. I wouldn't really want to enable these protocols on the client side in particular. They're not really secure. They're deemed obsolete at the moment, but if you have the need to do it, it is possible. You do have the ability to enable SSL acceleration. You can toggle it on a per virtual service basis. So if you have a particular application server and you have a particular virtual service that you need to run these older, slightly more obsolete, insecure protocols, you can, of course, enable TLS 1.0 and even SSL v3 on these virtual services. And you can also customize the cipher suites that you have associated with these protocols, such that then you can select exactly which ciphers you want to use, whether you want to incorporate some slightly weaker ciphers or even some stronger ciphers, just so you can get the correct balance, if you will, for your application and your client.
Awesome. So we have the capability to support what I'm going to call legacy encryption protocols and standards.
Yeah.
So the functionality is backwards compatible if you have systems that are old.
Right. That just to kind of go off of that, Frank, as well. You know, what Jake explained is correct, but you also think about the other point of view, right? So if the server, maybe you have an old server, like a 2003 Microsoft server, because you don't want to replace it, because you don't have the time, money, resources, whatever it is, and maybe they only use SSL v3 and 1.0, but you don't want to have that forward facing on the internet, right? So the LoadMaster is a reverse proxy, and we can tell the client or the customer to come in on something newer, but at the same time still negotiating on those old protocols to the server itself. And they don't know about each other at all, and that's the beauty of it.
Oh, so that's really cool. So what you're saying is because the LoadMaster or the load balancer is a reverse proxy, and it's managing the connections between the client and the LoadMaster, and then the LoadMaster to the server, we can negotiate two different protocol standards for the two halves of the connection.
That was absolutely.
So from the internet side, which is more important in terms of security and privacy, we can put in a much tougher standard, more current standard, while still supporting on the backside the weaker standard that you have to support for this application that supports it. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great use case. I love that.
Exactly. Especially today, you always hear everyone getting hacked and everything else. So it's always good to be secure conscious.
And of course, in the security world, and anybody feel free to chime in, we have new standards, current standards such as ECC, elliptical, communications standards for doing the encryption and things like that. And we have TLS. SSL became TLS, even though we kind of use them interchangeably. We have TLS 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and this may be getting too technical for some of the folks on the call, but is there a concern in terms of like the free LoadMaster, because it's a free product and we're giving away, of supporting current standards like that? Or are they comfortable knowing that they can support the current standards?
I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, the LoadMaster's there. You can download it. You can do whatever you want with it. You can, like Jake said before, you can configure it however you need to configure it at that point. If you only want to allow TLS 1.2, and we also, by the way, we do support TLS 1.3 now, which is the newest standard for TLS. You configure it to only allow that. So as much
awesome.
or as little as you want.
That's awesome. So just because you're using the free version of the product does not mean that you're sacrificing security or anything else in the capability. The capability is current in terms of what is provided even from the commercial perspective for security. That's awesome. Let's try something else, and let's throw it over to you, Bill. So I have this question here, and this is kind of an interesting question. What are some of the networking capabilities of the LoadMaster and load balancer? And this is kind of interesting because it sits on the network, so it is a network type component in the environment. So there has to be some functionality, but what do you want and what do you really need?
And that's a great point, Frank. I mean, I like to think of it in the way that, any device that really has an IP address at least has some kind of networking capability, whether it's static routing or intelligent routing. Unfortunately, the LoadMaster doesn't provide intelligent routing, but we do provide things like static routes, virtual service specific, and global default gateways. We do provide ACLs or access control lists. On a virtual service and at a global scale. But to hit on something that Nick touched on earlier, we do act as a reverse proxy. And really, we can source an IP address from, a virtual services IP, but we can also source it from a back-end interface for an interface that's pointed toward a real server. And that really allows for some scalability out and flexibility as to what can and cannot be added to a LoadMaster.
Awesome. And you know what? You say unfortunately, and I kind of say, you know what? That's kind of a good thing that you don't have to or need to support some of these more complex dynamic routing protocols, because they can get fairly hard to manage. And some people make their entire careers just on understanding and configuring and managing these complex routing protocols like BGP, for example. So by keeping things simple, it makes it easy for the end user to be able to employ and develop. And even having said that, it's not just I also want to add in, I don't think it's just the IP routing concept that we need to worry about. In terms of networking capabilities, we also need to understand the layer 2/3, and I'm going to hybridize them because the OSI model is not perfect, where you have things like VLAN technologies. So supporting VLAN IDs up to 4096 VLAN IDs, really 4095 because some of the default VLANs and things like that, and even supporting some of the more advanced, I'll say more advanced technologies that we see coming up later, like VXLAN technology for SDN networks and supporting things like that. Those are things that that I think start becoming important too, because and let's ask you, Jake. How do you see these layer 2 and 3 networking technologies being incorporated in your load balancing experiences dealing with your customers?
Well, I guess one of our more common ones, no, it's not available with the free LoadMaster, but we can do high availability over layer 2 and clustering as well. Now, that, as I said, it's not available on the free LoadMaster, but if you do go with either a trial product or one of our commercial products, you will get that layer 2 load balancing across an active standby pair, or even an M+N cluster where you can have multiple active nodes where one load master acts as the master, and then it's load balancing to your individual nodes there afterwards.
Yeah, that's an awesome comment and point there. That high availability, the HA concept is important. It can be important for organizations as they get larger to maintain that availability of the service, and that's something you want to keep in mind. And kind of related to that, then I have a question. Let's say I'm using the free product and I can't do the high availability in terms of providing the active standby functionality between the two load masters in a single data center. But you know what? I might still be getting to the point where I want some sort of disaster recovery, multiple sites and things like that. So Nick, is it possible for me to take advantage of technologies to give me some disaster recovery functionality for multi-site availability?
Oh yeah. We call that the geo functionality, global site load balancing. So, typical load balancing happens, you do kind of like went about the OSI model before, happens like a HTTP or TCP level protocols. This one, we more or less handle DNS queries and responses. So you configure a FQDN, the load master then acts as a DNS responder. And then without getting super technical, that's the short and sweet of it basically at that point. So query comes in, reaches the load master, we respond back to an IP. And then we also have, capabilities to do some type of checking on those set IPs, determine if they're up or down.
So that's really cool. So by manipulating DNS, and doing inspection, we can actually check the validity of a site, whether it's healthy or not. And based on that validity of the site, we can hand out specific IP addresses based on to the DNS query to send traffic to one location or another for disaster recovery, or even possibly an active scenario. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you could do anything like one site could be what you always get back, and you can have some type of active standby, like you said, or you can do like a round robin type of thing where they kind of just go back and forth.
Awesome. This is great. And I appreciate everybody's time here on spending with this live chat. And I appreciate everybody's time coming in and listening to the event. So some last minute comments or words from y'all. Let's start with you, Bill. Any last minute things you want to say or mention to everybody out there?
No, just glad that everyone was here to listen today. Like I said, one of the reasons that I'm in support is that I like to help customers. And, this gives me a much wider audience in order to be able to do so.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Bill. And we definitely appreciate you doing this. And I know the customers that you interact with love you. I know that from a fact from seeing everything that I see out there. So how about
thank
you,
very
Nick?
much for the words, Frank.
Absolutely. How about you, Nick? Anything?
I just want to say thank you. Really appreciate it. Hope you invite me back. Hope anyone else can always reach out to one of us somehow through social media, through support, whatever else what you got to do. We're always here to help you. And, again, happy to be here with you.
I appreciate a lot. Nick. You do a lot for us, and you are one of our go-to people. So we love having you around, and we love your expertise in helping our customers. And finally, over to you, Jake, over in Ireland. How are things going with you? And any last-minute words from you?
It's just been a great pleasure. It's the first time doing something like this, so it's a great experience for myself. I hope people found it informative and that they're more than welcome to get in contact with support or through the community, and that they enjoy the products. And that's what we're here for, really, at the end of the day. And just everyone take care of themselves and be safe.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for our expert support team who decided to join us for this live event. I believe that one of the best advantages and best reasons to use the free load balancer and the Kemp LoadMaster solution is because of the expertise and quality of our support team. So thank you for everybody for coming to listen to this event, whether it's live or on demand. And we look forward to talking to you at a future event. Thank you very much and have a great day.